Welcome to the most interesting AITA story of a lesbian who gets pregnant through artificial insemination, but against the wishes of her partner. When her partner learns about it, there unfolds an intense drama, and OP has to call the police. Let's dive into the story to see what happened next. The story is from Throwaway Anonymous 1Q. AITA for calling the cops on my lesbian roommate. So, I have been living with my lesbian roommates for 6 years. The two of them have been in a relationship for 6 years. For privacy's sake, and to make this less confusing, I'll use fake names. So, 2 nights ago, Emma was trying to be as civil as possible, trying to end things. Mary had gotten pregnant behind Emma's back in June, at a time where we had all lost our jobs, by getting artificially inseminated by a former co-worker's sample, which Emma had told Mary time and again they weren't in the position for it. What's happening now is even harder on Emma. So after a night of trying to just say again and again to end things, after finding a bond with someone who makes Emma happy, at the end of the day, she was trying to avoid Mary and not respond. Mary had already tried to take the Xbox and threatened to put down Emma's dog Xavier. So, Mary's last resort was to take Linda, a passed-away pet's ashes, away from Emma and threaten to walk out the door with Linda if they were not together on Facebook. So, I called in the next day and helped Emma load her stuff up for her mom's. When I came home, I decided to take a nap, which was the first mistake. When Mary came home and realized she was not kidding, she grabbed my new kitchen knives and cut alongside her left forearm, pleading and texting Emma to come back. When I woke, I came downstairs and saw her weeping and bleeding, pleading to know where Emma was. I managed to get a knife away from her, but she went straight for another one, hitting me in the head and giving me my first ever concussion. I already have bad decision-making skills, and this did not help. I let her have the knife and went to the back porch to breathe. She came back to the porch and pleaded with me, no threats, to tell her where Emma went. I refused every step of the way, texting Emma while this was happening, who told me to call the cops. I managed to ask Mary to do something to break away and call the police. The police came shortly, and she managed to evade them by sitting atop the external garage for an hour or two. At this time, my other roommates, Gabe and Peter, came home and found her on top of the garage. Gabe came upstairs and told me she needed to breathe and calm down, so I gave her distance and space to breathe and cope. Gabe said Mary had bandages on her wounds, and I was fine giving her space to calm down. But then, Gabe came back and asked me to speak to Mary's mom. I called her, and she said to call the police again, as she was fading in and out of consciousness and speaking down on herself. I was already worried about her wounds. So, the police came again and took away my tense roommate. Hearing the fighting, I knew she would loathe me for calling. All this with her being 5 months pregnant. After the fact of all that, Emma told me that Mary was wondering where she was, on whether or not she was with someone else or her mom, which was her mom, which now makes me think the situation could have been managed without the police carrying her away. There's more that came from this the following day, but this was a crazy enough situation, and I can't tell for the life of me if I chose right in such a high-pressure situation. But she is seething. She's been away for the weekend but comes back for her things tomorrow. She already stole some odds and ends on the way out, like my pot and pan set. I've never been in a situation like this in my life before. OP is not an AH for calling the police because she was in a stressful situation and Mary's behavior was self-destructive and threatening. In this situation, calling the police was the best option to ensure the safety of everyone involved. Blaming OP is wrong. Let's now jump on to the next story from 𝐋𝐻 AITA for breaking up with my girlfriend because she wanted an open relationship, knowing my position on it. I've 19M been with my girlfriend, 20F, for about 2 to 3 years now. Things have always been good between us. We had a solid relationship, sweet moments, and all the usual stuff that comes with being in a serious, committed relationship. From the beginning, we were clear that our relationship would be exclusive. I'm strictly monogamous. I don't have anything against open relationships or polyamory, but it's just not something I could handle in a serious relationship where my feelings are involved. Lately, though, things started to get weird. She began making comments about other guys, saying how she found some random dude or how attractive someone else was. At first, I just brushed it off and didn't make a big deal out of it. But these comments became more frequent, and honestly, it started to feel a bit overwhelming. Then came the real shocker. She told me she was starting to get interested in other people. She said she still loved me, but she wanted to explore things both personally and so she then asked, "What if we opened the relationship?" I was stunned for a moment and nervously laughed, which she noticed. I half joked, half seriously replied, "Then I'm not going to be a part of it, haha." She got the hint, but still kept pushing the idea. I got frustrated and asked her why she wanted this. She said she was curious and wanted to explore her sexuality without damaging the emotional bond we had. I was taken aback but responded, "I support your decision to explore, but if you want that, then forget about me. You know very well that exclusivity is crucial to me in a serious relationship." This led to a heated argument. She accused me of being closed-minded and called me a coward for not being willing to try something new. Those words hurt, and later that night at my home, I lay in bed wondering if there was a way to talk this through or find some middle ground. We did eventually meet up again to discuss things more calmly, but no matter what, I just couldn't accept the idea of opening the relationship, even if I also had the freedom to see other people. It was a solid no from me. I told her, "I'm sorry, but we couldn't come to an agreement. You know my stance on this kind of relationship. I'm glad you want to explore this, but unfortunately, I won't be the person to do that with. Let's just end things now, save ourselves the drama, and move on. You'll have the freedom to do what you want, and I won't have to deal with the anxiety of knowing you're with someone else." She didn't take it well, called me selfish again, and repeated that I was insecure. At that point, I just stayed silent and let her say what she needed to say. We both sat there for a while, both of us with tears in our eyes. We eventually said our goodbyes. She still told me everything she previously thought about me, and after I got home, I saw that she had blocked me on everything. I just let out a sigh and laid down on my bed. Right now, I'm focusing on myself and moving forward, trying to maintain zero contact with her. So, AITA? Edit. Thank you all for your comments. I really can't reply to all of them, but I have read them all. You all really gave me good advice, and also some reasons that I will reflect on. Anyway, thanks. If something happens these days, and I see it conveniently, I'd make an update. Update: AITA for breaking up with my girlfriend because she wanted an open relationship, knowing my position on it. Now, I will give you more context. It's been 5 days since we broke up. During these days, I have been reflecting, mostly due to some comments on the previous post, mentioning that maybe she was always like this, that we were just incompatible, that we are young, and that she has the right to explore her or whatever. I admit I shouldn't have done it, but I kept thinking and racking my brain more and more. Was she really like this? I didn't pay attention to this when we made the relationship official, because this felt so strange to me when we decided to make things serious because I asked for exclusivity, and she agreed, even emphasized it herself, which left me more and more confused. Anyway, yesterday I ran into her. I know that maybe was an error. I tried to ignore her, but I couldn't, since now she wanted to talk to me, and I was about to reject her, but my thoughts got the better of me, and I agreed, mainly to ask her about my doubts. We went to her house, and although she tried to be nice, I just asked her to get to the point. We sat down at the table and talked. She tried to ask me how I was doing, but I just dodged the question, and then I confronted her again, asking why she was now bringing up polyamory and all that, after so much time being with me, after even she agreed to exclusivity and emphasized it. When I said this, I raised my voice, basically shouting at her. Then I got my answer, and although it was predictable, it still shocked me. Long story short, yes, she has indeed been emotionally cheating on me and was tempted to do it physically. I just stood there, stunned, took a deep breath, and even though I was really angry, I asked her, since when and with whom? According to her, she spent the last 2 months with a guy she met at her college, which coincides suspiciously with when she started acting weird. I raised my voice again, asking what she thought by not telling me. Did she think I was an idiot, even trying to manipulate me to open the relationship? She said that she didn't want to lose me, that she loved me, and as for opening the relationship, it was advice from her friends. I must clarify that not all of them are women. They told her that she had the right to explore while still being with me, that they even do it, and they are still with their partners, and some of their partners have no idea about it. What a people in this life. Honestly, I had a strong urge to scream at her as loud as I could, but I had to keep my composure. I asked her what she did with this guy, if they were still in touch. She just told me that the same day we broke up, she slept with him, but later she regretted it, And in these last few days, she realized her mistake and wanted to be honest with me now, with the possibility to give her another opportunity. I couldn't deal with her anymore, and I told her she had almost 3 months to be honest with me, and instead tried to manipulate me into falling into her trap so she could walk away without any guilt. I told her that if she wants to cry, go ahead because I won't give her another chance, and I don't care anymore because I lost the little respect I had for her. With a knot in my throat from the hurt, I told her clearly that I never want to see her in my life again, and that if she sees me in a store, she should avoid me and go somewhere else because I don't want to see or hear her. She broke down crying again, begging me to forgive her, grabbing my shirt to stop me from leaving. I pushed her away, opened the door, and slammed it shut once I got home. And it would be a lie to say I didn't shed tears. We're young. She wanted to explore herself, and she's right to do so. She was right to tell me she is not the asshole either. Pure bull. Now, I'm still incredibly hurt. I feel worse than when I started, and I feel like an idiot for even crying, knowing this could have been a possibility. I will see if I can get back on my feet and move on, even though I'm still hurt. That's the only thing I can do. OP is not an AH for clearly stating his priorities in the relationship. So, I would rate him 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. On the other hand, OP's girlfriend is an AH, a bigger one for breaching trust and trying to manipulate him into an open relationship. I think there is nothing like an open relationship. OP's girlfriend wants to be a nympho, which is obviously disgusting. She is an AH, and I would rate her 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from awkward_middle 4138. AITA for telling my mill. That my husband is spending Thanksgiving with his new family, I, 31F, married to my husband Elliot, 33M, and I'm pregnant with our first baby. Our daughter is due the week after Thanksgiving, and we're both incredibly excited. Elliot and I are actually from the same hometown, but we moved across the country when I got into my dream grad school. To be honest, his parents weren't happy about him moving for me, and always said I was talking him away from the family, and that he shouldn't give up his dreams for me. Luckily, Elliot stood up for me, and told his parents that he saw a future with me, and wanted to be in the same city as me. I also don't know how he was giving up his dreams when the city is actually the best place in the USA to be for his career. We ended up loving the city and staying there after I graduated. It was beneficial for both of our careers, and we now have a great group of friends. Elliot's parents have gotten better over the years, but I've never felt fully comfortable around them and always get the sense that they're upset we moved away. For our entire marriage, we've flown home to spend Thanksgiving and Ematmas with our families. But given that my due date is the week after Thanksgiving this year, we obviously planned on staying home and celebrating together. Yesterday, my MIL called and told me about a conversation she had with Elliot. I guess she called him earlier in the week and asked when he was flying home for Thanksgiving. Elliot said that I can't fly when my due date is a week away, and my MIL said he could still fly out for a few days. Elliot refused because he didn't want to leave me. He said he wants to celebrate Thanksgiving with me and feels uncomfortable leaving when I'm so close to my due date since the baby could come early. I learned all this from my MIL because Elliot never told me about the conversation. He said he didn't tell me because the request was insane, and he didn't want me to worry about it with everything else going on. My MIL asked if I'd tell Elliot he should fly home to spend time with his parents and sisters. I told my MIL that I want him to spend time with his family, but also, I want my husband with me when I'm in the final stage of pregnancy. I also don't want to be alone on Thanksgiving, since my family is on the other side of the country. My MIL told me that I see Elliot all the time, and the holidays are the time he gets to spend with his family. She also said that I was the one who wanted to move away, and so I should accept that there will be times when Elliot and I don't spend the holidays together because he has an obligation to fly home and spend that time with his family. I tried to tell her that I don't feel comfortable, but she kept going on and on about how she wants to see her son on Thanksgiving, and how family is the most important thing. I interrupted and said she's welcome to visit us, but Elliot and I are both going to be home on Thanksgiving and also Ematmas since we'll have a newborn. I told her that since she values family so much, she should be happy that she raised a son who prioritizes his wife and child, since we're his family now. I said that Elliot is doing the right thing by putting his new family first at this stage of his life. This set my MIL off, and she said I was being selfish and possessive. She said that her biggest fear when we got married was that I would take him away from his family. And I'm doing just that. She seemed especially upset that I referred to us as Elliot's new family. I told her she needs to take it up with Elliot and got off the phone. When I told Elliot about the conversation, he was furious to say the least. He told me that his mom is being unreasonable and assured me he'd take care of it. I'm glad he's sticking up for me, but I've been sad all day. I'm not trying to keep my husband away from his family, but also, I don't want to spend Thanksgiving alone when I'm so pregnant. I also want him here, in case I go into labor early. I feel bad that they miss him and won't get to see him for the holidays this year, especially when I'm the reason we moved. With that being said, there's nothing stopping them from coming here. AITA? Also, the funniest thing is that my Mael came to the USA from England, and so I don't know why Thanksgiving is such a big deal to her LMAO. OP is not an AH here for expecting her husband to be with her, especially when her delivery date is near. On the other hand, Elliot's mom's insistence on him traveling at this time is unreasonable and completely unjustifiable. Her insistence seems to be the product of jealousy, because if she really wanted to be with her son on Thanksgiving, she should have traveled to OP's home. OP's mother-in-law is an AH, and I would rate her 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from individual_echo7144. AITA. For upsetting my cousin's wife over a baby name? For some background info, I have a pretty large family, and we're spread out across neighboring states. We try to keep in contact with each other online, but the only time we really see each other is ematmas, when everybody flocks back to our home state. My cousin Joshua married Mia earlier this year, but not everybody was able to make it to the wedding because of how far it was. Because of the distance, most of the family had yet to meet Mia before this weekend. Another important factor is that my extended family tends to be religious, but my immediate family is not. Over the weekend, Joshua and Mia made their way back to our family's home state to have a baby shower for their first child. Everybody was able to make it to the baby shower, and after the initial awkwardness of meeting Mia for the first time, things seemed normal. There was a gender reveal game, and the baby ended up being a girl. After the reveal, there was an opportunity to write a note to the baby with a name suggestion and put it in a designated box for Joshua and Mia to look at later. I wrote a pretty regular note along the lines of, "Hey baby, I hope you're doing well. I'm suggesting the name Catherine. With love, your cousin, my name." Joshua and Mia have since gone home, and I haven't really thought about the name suggestion since then. I got a call from Joshua yesterday, and it was pretty basic small talk, until he started asking why I suggested Catherine. I was a little confused because I thought it was a pretty name, and it goes well with their last name. Apparently, Joshua and Mia didn't really want a biblical name for the baby. I didn't put a ton of thought into the name at the baby shower, so I didn't associate it with being biblical so much as just traditional. But then again, my extended family is more on the religious side, so I wouldn't be the only one suggesting a biblical name. I asked him why my pick was all that important, but he kept talking in circles. The call went on for another few minutes until he finally admitted that Mia had been searching through the names in our family and noticed that my first name isn't biblical at all. For reference, I was named after a song my dad liked, and my middle name was picked to honor my deceased grandmother, but that name isn't biblical either. I tend to go by my middle name with my extended family because I ended up looking a lot like my grandma, and they all thought it was a sweet tribute. The Catherine question confused me, but the whole name searching thing confused me even more. I asked Joshua why my name even mattered, and he said that Mia liked how unique my first and middle name are compared to the rest of my family. Apparently, Mia was hoping that I would suggest a name like mine rather than following the traditional biblical route like the rest of my family. Joshua told me that Mia is upset now because both her family and our family have only suggested biblical names. I told Joshua to just look up different names, but he got defensive. The conversation got heated, and I told him that if Mia wanted a different name, that's not my problem. I went on to say that she has access to the internet if she wants to look up a different name, so I really don't need to be involved at this point. I got a text this morning saying that Mia is upset and that it's essentially my fault because Joshua told her what I said. OP is not an AH for making an innocent name suggestion, especially when he didn't know that her cousin and his wife had specific preferences. It was just a suggestion. She didn't insist or do anything else to push for choosing the names she suggested. So, OP is not an AH, and I would rate her 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. On the other hand, OP's cousin and his wife are being unreasonable. And they are a little AH, so I would give them 0.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from new-888, AITA for uninviting my brother and nephew from my celebration dinner. Backstory: my sister and I, early 30s, have an older brother. He's on his second marriage. His first marriage gave me my nephew Connor, 15. Connor is autistic. When he was born, my, at the time, sister-in-law's family was the village. My parents were also the village. My sister and I were not. This resulted in many arguments, until I told my parents they could either have my brother and his family, and I would go and see, or they could respect my boundaries and I'd still be around. They agreed. Eventually, my brother got a divorce because of marital problems, one of which was his ex-wife, insisting that I and my sister step up and help. I felt bad for him, still do, but I wasn't going to change my stance. My sister didn't either. I have lived out of state for a bit and recently accepted a new job offer close to home. It came with a nice bonus, so I decided to invite my parents, sister, and brother out for dinner at my favorite KBBQ spot. My parents confirmed that it wasn't my brother's week with my nephew, so all was well and good. About a week before I got back home, my brother called and said his ex had something come up, and that he had Connor the upcoming week, and his current wife was going to be out of town with her sisters. I said no worries and asked if he wanted to call his regular babysitter for Connor, and I'd cover it for our dinner night. He said no, he wanted to bring Connor to the dinner and asked if we could change the venue, because Connor gets overstimulated. I said no. This was my dinner, I'm paying for it, and I'm going to my favorite place. He said, "You know, your nephew really can't handle a place like that." I said, "Yes, I know. That's why I'm offering to cover paying for a babysitter for that night." He argued that he'll just bring Connor with him. I said he's welcome to do that, but then I'm not going, so it'll just be him and our parents. He told me that was messed up, that if Connor gets overstimulated, he'll just take him and go outside until he calms down. I reminded him the last time we went to a KBBQ place, Connor had a meltdown and they had to leave. My parents always feel bad for Connor, so they'll usually leave and go to my brother's house to help. I said I didn't want that happening. I wanted to have a nice dinner without having to worry about that. He told me to go myself and hung up. We went to dinner. My sister, my parents and I. My brother did not show up. It was a nice dinner. My parents enjoyed it too, but they said they wished my brother had come. I agreed. They then said they wished my nephew had come too. I did not agree. I said it would have likely resulted in my brother leaving after maybe 30-40 minutes of being there, and they would have followed him too. They agreed, but said I should have let him come anyway and just deal with it. I said that sounds like a good reason for me not to do that, and we didn't talk much that night after that. AITA, edit. I've babysat Connor before. Even now I will watch him for a few hours if my brother has to do something. I don't watch him all day or overnight though. It's not his fault, and he is no way a bad kid. However, I had to set boundaries because my parents and brother, mostly his ex-wife, would take a mile if you gave them an inch. They wanted my sister and I to stay local after high school so we could help with babysitting, and I was not about to do that. I did see both of them before I left, since I wanted to, but I did not apologize for wanting to eat my favorite spot and have it done my way for just one night. Whenever he, my brother, wants to have to dinner, we basically go to the same local spot because it's quiet and doesn't upset my nephew, and it's his fixation when it comes to food. That's perfectly fine, and I go to those dinners, but for my dinner, I wanted it somewhere I enjoyed. Update. First, I wanted to thank everybody, positive for negative, for giving feedback. Whether it was good or bad, I did read every one of them, even the ones who called me an asshole. Totally valid. While I did see my brother and Connor before I left, it was more of just playing with Connor and making small talk with my brother. I decided today to call my brother to try and get more info and smooth things out. We talked for about 5 minutes before I broached the subject. I told him I was sorry if it felt like I was being unnecessarily mean or exclusionary to Connor, but that I felt I had a right to decide how to celebrate the way I wanted to. He said he was sorry that he snapped the way he did, and looking back, he realized Connor would have had an awful time, and it would have been a big waste of money for me. The place we went to was about $80 a person. $40 for Connor, whether he ate or not. He just really wanted him to be there too. I told him going forward, for things like my birthday, I would be more than happy to have lunch as a family with Connor at somewhere he likes, so he can have a good time. then go to dinner at somewhere I want to eat at, and I'd pay for a babysitter or his mom, my brother's ex, can watch him. He asked if Connor would be welcome at the dinner too, and I said, I don't think so, because I still plan to have KBBQ hot pot / sushi / fine dining, and Connor doesn't do well in those environments, lights / sounds / smells / atmosphere. Which is why I brought up having lunch the day of beforehand so we can all celebrate and it be okay for him. But I was still standing firm that for my birthday, or something like another promotion, I wanted to go somewhere that I enjoyed without having to worry. I brought up also that when he took us out to lunch, was once a month before I moved, he picked, or my parents picked, and they always catered to Connor. I had no problems with that and attended almost all of them. This time, I wanted something for myself. He wasn't over the moon about it, but said it sounded good and thinks Connor would enjoy it too. He also looked into getting him sunglasses, as one of you suggested, for bright, overly stimulating environments. He then had a question for me, which I knew was going to be asked at some point. Now that I'm closer to home, he asked if I was going to be more involved as an uncle. I said yes, but not in the way he probably wants. I said I'd be more than happy to go over to his house and hang out with him, his wife and Connor, and bring food he likes, as well as babysitting him once or twice a month, so he and his wife could go see a movie or have dinner together. But I wasn't going to be an on-call babysitter like my parents are. Several times, he's dropped Connor off at their house for a weekend, with little notice, because he and his wife wanted to go on a spontaneous vacation. I told him that was not going to happen with me, especially since I'm in the process of adopting a cat, and he and Connor are allergic. I wasn't allowed to have a cat while I lived in my parents' house, which was fine because it's their house, and it wasn't fair to my brother and Connor who were over super often. So him getting dropped at my new place was out of the question. He thankfully didn't press the topic and said it's okay, Mom and Dad don't mind, and that he missed hanging out with me, and was happy that I could be around Connor more. So everything worked out as well as I could have hoped. I'm excited to move back home in a few weeks, and thank you all again for the advice, criticism. Go to AITA. OP is not an AH for setting clear boundaries regarding her celebration dinner and communicating openly about her reservation. So, I would rate her 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. However, it was OP's brother who was being unreasonable in begging and a little bit of an AH. So, I would rate him 0.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Emmy Coltrane. AITA, for breaking up with my boyfriend after he didn't show up for our date. Allow me to explain. I, 18F, have only been dating my boyfriend, Neil, 19M, for only 2 weeks. However, we've been talking for about a month. Now, I was very clear about my boundaries for my relationships. I wanted both parties to be able to work together and create a good relationship. Now, when we became official, that's when everything started to happen. My boundaries were as follows. I will not sleep with you. Please do not ask for photos of any kind, even just cute ones of me. If I would like to send photos, I will do them on my own terms. The reasoning for this is, I'd just gotten over talking to someone, and that's all he would do. He would just ask for stuff, and I wasn't comfortable. So I made them very clear when talking to my BF. However, after everything became official, it seemed to him that all of those boundaries just flew out the window. He started asking for pictures of me, sending me things that made me uncomfortable, etc. One of the things that he always wanted to do was play games. I didn't care that he was a gamer. However, they was the literal only thing he ever wanted to do as a date. Our first date, he asked if he could bring his PS5, to which I replied, to the park? Because our first day was a picnic at the park. Every date from then on, there had to be something about the PS5. Our second date at his house, he wanted to play games. I insisted that we just watch something instead, because I'm not a gamer. However, on the third date, we were watching a show, and then he wanted to play games again. We played Minecraft for a bit, and then he went and played COD, and I was sitting on his couch looking at my phone. Once his mom came home, we played Minecraft again, which I still had no interest in. He was even being inappropriate in the game, so much as to outline a dildo in the trees. I was starting to lose interest at that point. Now, today. Last night I was talking to him, and I asked if we were doing anything today, because he doesn't work today. He replied with, IDK. And then went back to talking about video games. We usually hang out on Mondays and Thursdays. so it's routine for us at this point. But it seems he has no interest other than for me to be his gaming buddy. So, I said he should come over around 3, and we could watch something. He proceeded to ask if he could bring his PS5. I mentioned before how I had no TV in my dorm room, and that I only had a laptop to watch things on. So I reminded him of that, and his response was, "But we can't play games on it though." Well, fast forward to today, 10 minutes to 3. I was getting ready, and by that I mean cleaning up so he could come over. 3 had hit, and he wasn't there. I didn't worry, or mind. I'd been late a couple times before, so it was no biggie. But after 15 minutes, and he still wasn't there, I wondered. So I texted him. Another 15 minutes, and I texted him again. By that point, he was 30 minutes late. I called my brother to see if maybe they were playing games together, but my brother was at work. I eventually got to thinking about what kind of boyfriend he was. So I know that he was only late to 1 date, but everything that he has ever done was for him, and never me. I'm not a super clingy GF, I'm usually chill about things, but he's just really making me upset. My mom and brother had suggested maybe he'd just fallen asleep, which I was also okay with. However, that did give me time to cry to my mom about how upset he was making me. So, AITA? OP is not an AH for breaking up with her boyfriend, because she clearly communicated her boundaries, but her boyfriend consistently disrespected them and prioritized gaming over their relationship. Her feelings of frustration and neglect are valid, and ending the relationship seems like a reasonable response to his behavior. As for scores, I would rate OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP's ex-boyfriend 2.5. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye. See you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.